If you're running Facebook ads and you've ever hit a wall when you're advertising, meaning you've never been able to get over a hump in terms of how much you could actually spend. You always get stuck at $100 or $1,000 a day or even $5,000 per day, but you can't seem to actually get over that amount of spend and maintain your target return on ad spend, then this video is for you. Because in this video, I'm gonna break down exactly how we broke that wall for one of our clients in just 40 days, specifically how we increased spend from $90,000 to over $200,000 in just 30 days. That's a 177% increase, all the while keeping our target return on ad spend actually the same, if not better, when it comes to acquiring new customers. Let's jump right in. First things first, this is the account that we took over the last 30 days, over 177% increase in total spend. That's an increase from $93,995 all the way to $260,745 in just the last 30 days. So we're comparing 30 over 30. That change is an increase of $166,000. So whatever you thought about the learning phase and scaling by 10%, I want you to throw it out the window, because we are not here to make little tiny changes and go from 10,000 spend to 11,000 spend. And you're probably asking, well, did you just spend a lot more money? Did you actually drive more revenue? Yes, of course we drove more revenue. Purchase return on ad spend stayed almost exactly flat. We increased ROAS while we scaled 177% by 2.6. You might say, oh, 2.6% change in ROAS. Who cares, right? It doesn't really matter. But think about what this does to revenue. So purchase conversion value increased 184%, meaning this account spent $166,000 more, but they drove $344,000 more in revenue. That means they went from total revenue the previous month of $186K to $530K driven from Facebook ads alone. That's a $500,000 from a $186,000 business to a $500,000 plus in 30 days. There's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of devil in the details here. I'm not going to lie to you guys. This took hours and hours and hours of deep dives and hard work, but here's the core and what I'd recommend for everyone to do. This is one of the best exercises that we do every single time that we evaluate an account that's in a position to scale. First thing you're going to do is you want to open up your audience segments breakdowns. So you can do that by clicking the breakdown button and clicking audience segments. Once you're in this audience segments, what's going to open up is new, engage, existing, and then potentially unknown and uncategorized. Now you can see here, thankfully, because these are set up properly, unknown and uncategorized are very, very low. They're pennies. They're probably from overseas or places that are unrecognized. Not a big deal. What we really care about is the distribution of spend between new audiences, engaged, and existing. This is looking at the last 30 days. We could tell right away the majority of our spend is going to new audiences, right? That is a fantastic sign, because I know if you're a smart marketer, you probably watched this. You probably watched the first minute and you thought, well, they're probably just going to spend a whole lot more on existing customers. No, not at all. In fact, when you compare period over period, our engaged and existing customer spend hardly went up. It was all in incremental new acquisition, right? So this is the last 30 days. If we look at my screen, this is the previous 30 days. Engaged and existing only increased by about $4,000, while new audiences went from 73 to $236,000. Think about that change. Not to mention, check out the revenue, which is right here. We drove $456,000 in new customer revenue. So these people have a lifetime value. They're going to come back over and over and over again. But all I'm focused on is acquiring profitable customers that are incremental today. So what we looked at in this account is we went back to the previous period before we started working with this brand. Now, the previous 30 days, we wanted to just look at new, engaged, and existing customers first. Don't worry, there's more breakdowns coming. So what we're looking for here is a distribution of spend between new, engaged, and existing. Now, in this case, we saw new customers convert at a 1.67 return on ad spend. We saw engaged convert at a 3, and we saw existing convert at a 3 as well. What I'm really looking for here is to understand what would happen if we increased our total expenditure in new customers and new audience specifically. Obviously, what's going to happen is if we increase our spend in new audiences, we're going to see an overall return on ad spend drop. So what we did to the client here is we actually explained to the client that we're expecting new customers to return at around a 1.7 plus. We're going to work some magic on the back end to try to get this 1.7 up, but this is our baseline. So when we increase spend, we need to expect that it's going to come in at a 1.7. Now, that's a big education piece. So if you can't overcome that, if you feel like, no, I always want this 3, I always want this 3, that is literally not happening for new customers. That's happening for engaged and existing customers, which are are completely different than a cold audience. So what I would highly encourage here, and if you actually want to scale, you need to live into this new audience number right here. What we did with this client is we said baseline 1.7. Now, when we look at the current last 30 days, so this is May to June, the last 30 days since we've been managing this account, we can obviously see our return on ad spend increased on new audiences, and our engaged and existing, we're still floating right around a 3, right? When you average these out, they get back to a 3, meaning our distribution of spend now started to favor new audiences, and we maintain/increase that new audience return on ad spend. So I'm gonna break this down week by week to show you exactly how much we scaled. So don't be scared here when we increase spend by literally double and triple in just a 2-week period. Now, most people would say, you're crazy. What about the learning phase? You should only increase things 10 or 20%. Don't worry about that at all. That is not how you actually scale an ad account. You scale when new customer acquisition remains stable or up. You don't worry about engage. You don't worry about existing. You only focus on new audience segmentations. And what we did here is looking week by week, we were very flat for about 2 months. This is before we started working with this account. 20,000, 25,000, 25,000, 20,000, 16,000. This is where we start to scale for the first time. We move from 16 to 29,000. It's a huge increase. That's nearly a 60+% increase. And you'll notice our return on ad spend actually increased. We saw basically a flat return on ad spend this period. Then we said, let's take it up a notch. Let's move from 29,000 to 37,000. Keep in mind, this account has never spent $37,000 in a week ever. And return on ad spend stayed relatively flat, went down to 2.12. Not a huge deal. Then we said, let's take it to an extreme level. Let's move from $37,000 to $91,000 in just 1 week. When we did that, we more than doubled our total purchases. Return on ad spend dropped by 0.6. Who cares? It's not that big of a deal. 0.6 return on ad spend change for tripling of revenue. I'll take that any day. I think everyone would. Think about what that does to profit, not just return on ad spend. And then finally, we actually dropped down a few $1,000s week over week because we wanted to maintain that 2. We still are cognizant of the fact that we want to be at 2 return on ad spend. So we're making these micro adjustments throughout the week. But nevertheless, we're still at $80,000, where previously we were at 20 to 25. So we're still 3 to 4 times higher than we were on a weekly average compared to just 4 or 5 weeks ago. The key here is that each of these weeks, we were evaluating, like I showed you before, new audiences and new customer segmentation. We were not focused on engage and existing audiences. Now, step 2 is to actually look at the incremental impact according to the attribution windows within Facebook ads. So Facebook ads has tremendously increased their attribution windows in the last really 2 to 3 months. So what you can do is you can go to your column set here, click compare attribution settings, and you're going to see a whole bunch of options. The most important ones we want to focus on are 1-day click, 7-day click, 1-day view, and incremental attribution. A big note on incremental attribution, this only became available April 1st onwards. So you can't look from April 1st, 2025 or before. It has to be after April 1st, 2025. Once we click apply here, you're going to notice you have 4 columns. Now, these don't all add up, meaning we don't take 1,900 plus 2,000 plus 1,800. No, that's not how this works. The view conversions are deduped from the click conversion. So that means if I take my view 385 plus my 7-day click 2,049, that equals exactly my total purchases of 2,434 because I'm using a 7-day click, 1-day view attribution model. What you want to do here is you want to look for the distribution between 1-day view and incremental. Now, if you don't have incremental properly set up, you want to look at 1-day view versus 1-day click, and then 1-day view versus 7-day click. The expectation is that click-based conversions drive the majority of the purchases, and or incremental conversions drive the majority of the purchases. We want to avoid too much view through, and as a general rule of thumb, if your view through conversions are more than 30%, you have something funky going on. You probably are hitting too many existing customers, too many engaged audiences. And if that's you, if you're watching this right now, then I would highly advise you ask your marketing agency or whoever's running your ads, what the heck is going on? Why do we have half of our total conversions as view conversions? And if your marketing agency has no answer for you, then go in the description below and click to apply to work with us today at the Moonlighters, where we do all of this and all the implementation and way more with complete pros who have 7+ years experience in both Facebook ads and Google ads, specifically for e-commerce businesses. So when you're looking at this, what am I actually looking for? I'm seeing a total purchase count of 2,434. I'm seeing 1-day view of only 385. That's a very small amount compared to the total 2,400. And I'm seeing 1-day click with the majority of our conversions compared to the 1-day view. This to me just shows that Facebook is very incremental for this business. The next thing I'm evaluating is my incremental attribution, which takes all of my conversions and normally typically what we see is this strikes a balance in between 1-day click and 7-day click. So it's usually somewhere in between that. And in this case, it's almost perfectly in between these. So what I'm going to be doing for the next stage here is I'm just going to be eliminating 1-day view, 1-day click, and 7-day click. And I'm only going to be looking at incremental attribution because this is a video focused on how we know we could actually scale account, how we can evaluate for incremental impact. So when we eliminate all of these, we're going to unclick everything here and we're just going to select incremental attribution. We're now going to see our total purchases next to our incremental purchases. Now our total purchases are based on whatever attribution model we select. I would highly advise 7-day click, 1-day view, and our incremental attribution is going to be in the column to the right so we can compare, do a little compare and contrast. So how did we actually take this account and drive so much more revenue, so much more spend over just a 30-day period? The third step here for how we're actually evaluating how and when we can scale and what ads we can scale is to break down all the ads in the ad account. What I'm showing you right here is literally all our campaigns and all of our ads. If you have things broken down into prospecting, retargeting, and retention like the M3 system actually does, then you might want to just select your prospecting campaigns. For this account right here, this is a pure prospecting play. So this is a very nuanced, unique strategy. So we're looking at the entire account. So what we looked at here was every ad that had an impression over the 30-day period before we started working with them. What I'm looking for is a few things. So you'll notice that I have my audience breakdown set up. So we have our audience segments selected, and we also have our incremental attribution set up next to that as well. This is our first time we have the cross section between new audience and incremental attribution in our ad accounts. This is the key for figuring out what actually can scale for you. So all I'm looking at is return on ad spend or cost per purchase. To be honest, I don't care which one you look at here. I'm going to look at cost per purchase. And what I'm looking for is whenever my new audience is better than my engaged and existing, or whenever my new audience is better than the average of this ad. For example, this ad number 1 here has a $42 average cost per purchase over the last 30 days. The new audience drives a $57. The engaged audience drives a $21 cost per purchase. The existing drives a $22 cost per purchase. This to me is an ad that does fine, but isn't going to take us to a scaling level. It's not going to be able to drive a lot of new audience purchases because we can see it does it at such a poor cost per purchase, $57. And then we could also look at our return on ad spend for new, which is only 1.15 incremental and 1.42 on a 7-day click, 1-day view. So as we scroll down, and the exact analysis that we did on this account to figure out how to scale it so aggressively was we found a few ads that had the exact opposite relationship that I just mentioned. Here they are, ad number 1 and ad number 2. So ad number 1 drove an average cost per purchase of $34 at a 1.72 incremental return on ad spend. And look at the new audience return on ad spend incremental, 1.7. It's almost exactly the same as the average in this specific ad. And on a 7-day click, 1-day view metric, it's a 2. Huge win. We saw the same thing with this ad here, where we had a $37 cost per purchase for new audiences. We had a 1.94 return on ad spend for new audiences and a 1.74 for incremental. So we located our ads that were most impactful. And then what did we do? We created variations of those ads. Now those variations of those ads crushed. Now you're going to notice here, I know you can't see the exact ads that I have, but you're going to notice here that they look the same, right? The blurry image has the same background. We created multiple variations with multiple hooks of the same ads that worked super well. This is known as an iteration. It's one of the most common things that you can do in an ad account, but we just meticulously tweaked a few different elements of these video and image ads to actually create our best performing ads. Not all of them worked, but some did. And what we were able to create was ads that drove high incremental return on ad spend for new audience specifically. We can see 1.86, we can see 1.99. That's incremental. That's a 2 on a 7-day click, 1-day view, and a 2.1 on a 7-day click, 1-day view. Just these 2 ads spent $81,000 and $34,000 on just 2 ads. So what we're able to create is top performing ads based on the data for new audience acquisition and incremental conversions. If I were you, if I were anyone watching this video, this exercise, while it's a pain, and while it took me 20+ minutes to actually explain it all, is a critical exercise if you actually want to scale. All of this said, everything that we do here at the Moonlighters is custom, it's curated, it takes hours and hours of work. In fact, this might not be a 20-minute exercise in most cases. It was 20 minutes because I just explained exactly what we did, but the exercise of my team doing this took hours and hours and hours of work to find the exact ads, locate the hooks, figure out which ads they needed to make iterations on, and then get those iterations back from the client, deploy that in the ad account. It's a lot of work, obviously. And if you want someone working on your ad account that has performed like this in the past, click the button down below in the description to apply to work with us. Worst case, you take a 15-minute call. Best case, you are one of these incredible case studies that we have right here. So that is all for today. I hope you got a lot of value out of this video. Again, this was super detailed. And if you are more of a beginner, if you want to start from scratch, the setup and structure and strategy that I would recommend for Facebook can be located right here, is going through everything that I like to do in terms of my base core setup. All right, I will see you all in the next one.